As more restaurants have gluten-free menus and you hear more and more people going on a gluten-free diet, does it have you wondering if gluten-free dieting is just a fad, or does gluten really cause some health problems? My name is Jenny Waters and I am a nutrition and mindset coach for empty nesters. And on today's video, I'm going to teach you about what gluten actually is, how it affects your health, and who should probably try a gluten-free diet. I first wanted to share with you the life change my family experienced after going gluten-free. My husband had 3 autoimmune diseases and was on a lot of immune suppressant drugs that had pretty nasty side effects. And for a year, it just managed the pain, but his quality of life was not great. And after tons of research, I figured out that gluten could be a trigger for autoimmune. So he and I went on a gluten-free diet for 30 days, and that made all the difference. Slowly but surely, he's been able to put his autoimmune diseases into remission and get off those immune suppressant drugs and the side effects that went with them. Now, my daughter also had had skin rashes that many dermatologists could not quite diagnose. They thought it was eczema, but with lots of different medications, nothing seemed to work. It wasn't until she gave up gluten that she found the way to clear skin and feeling better. So what the heck is gluten? Gluten is the protein in wheat, barley, rye, and sometimes it's cross-contaminated into oats. But it's like, think of the glue. Gluten is the glue that keeps those breads and pastas together. It's what makes it spongy. And as you can imagine, it's in a lot of our processed foods. So wheat is the most common gluten in the nutrition label, so you can look for wheat as an allergen, and that's your first clue that there's gluten in that product. But you have to really look closer sometimes because there's other sneaky ways that it gets in there. So certified gluten-free is your best bet. Some common places that you'll find gluten are beer, some sauces like teriyaki, barbecue, soy sauce, salad dressings, croutons, pizza, pastas, breads, fried food, even soup bases and marinades. You really have to think about anything that needs thickening or that glue kind of from gluten. That is a potential for having gluten in it. So it's better to ask than to guess. The quality of gluten in the United States has changed dramatically. As we've genetically modified crops, there's higher gluten content, and we're spraying these crops with glyphosate, also known as Roundup, to dry them out to harvest. Now, you know that doesn't get washed off, so yes, you are eating that as well as the gluten. So you could be reacting to the wheat and the gluten, or also the chemicals that it is sprayed with. Even though that sounds like it's in all of our foods, there's plenty of foods that are already gluten-free. Fruits and vegetables, meats, real whole foods never had gluten in them. So get away from the processed foods, and that'll reduce your gluten consumption dramatically. But there is a way to enjoy food without having the gluten in it. You're not destined for tasteless food for the rest of your life. So most people think of changing their diet just to lose weight. But I want to encourage you to think about going gluten-free to affect your health, not just your waistline. Gluten is a common trigger for lots of chronic disease and chronic inflammation. Gluten is the common culprit for leaky gut, and leaky gut will set you up for chronic inflammation that leads to lots of different illnesses: autoimmune, cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, to name a few. Then once your gut lining is compromised, then you become sensitive to more and more foods. So it helps to heal your gut by dropping that gluten from your diet and letting your body heal itself. There's a wide spectrum of gluten sensitivity. You don't have to have celiacs to be gluten sensitive. Celiacs is typically a digestive issue, tummy aches after you've eaten it. That's not the only way to be sensitive to gluten. You could have a wheat, rye, or barley allergy. You could have a gluten intolerance, and as you heal your gut, that can become less and less. So if you have any kind of chronic health problem, I always recommend going gluten-free for 30 days to see how your symptoms can improve. It does take a little work to cut out the gluten in your diet, but that's what I teach my clients, of how to read labels and to be careful about what they're consuming. Go for less ingredients, read every label of anything you eat, and go for more whole fruits and vegetables and high quality meats. You might just discover that there's a whole realm of foods that taste delicious that you had never even thought to try. When your body detoxes from gluten, most people will feel a lot better. My clients have noticed that they don't have brain fog, they have a clearer thinking, they're not getting headaches as much, they don't feel that bloated blah feeling after meals. And joint pain and autoimmune conditions start to get better. If you suspect you have a gluten intolerance, what do you have to lose by testing it for yourself? Now, don't just swap out those processed foods for gluten-free foods. Just because a box is labeled gluten-free doesn't mean it's healthy. A gluten-free Oreo is never going to be a health food. Those are treats for as you progress throughout your gluten-free way of eating, but they're not meant for, especially for that first few weeks when you're really trying to detox from gluten. And what you'll realize is when you get into that gut healing mode and feeding your body good fruits and vegetables and high quality proteins, that those cravings for that junk food and for that gluten food is going to really drastically go down. It takes a few days, but it's from your gut bacteria crying for that old way of eating. And as that settles down, you start to feel better, you're not hungry as often, and those cravings go away. If you're eating at a restaurant, be sure and say that it's an allergy. No matter if it's an allergy or not, tell them it's an allergy, because that's when they take it seriously. We've had many a waiter say, I don't think there's gluten in it. But then when you say it's an allergy, I need you to be sure, then they're more likely to go ask the chef and to verify that there's not gluten in that dish you're ordering. Now, as we hit middle age, chronic illness starts to pop up. As the inflammation from what we've been eating has been slowly building, it sometimes comes to a head as we hit our late 40s and early 50s. So if you're gluten intolerant, it's important to learn now by testing yourself. And there's no partial gluten-free. It's either all or nothing in this testing phase for sure. It's kind of like being a little bit pregnant. You can't be a little bit gluten-free. You need to go all the way, totally detox from gluten, to see how your symptoms improve and to see how good you can feel without that gluten. You have to give your gut plenty of time to heal, and depending on how advanced your autoimmune or chronic illness is, it could take up to 3 months. Typically, you're going to start feeling better in a couple weeks to 3 weeks, but it's anywhere in the range. But you've got to give your body time to detox from that gluten and to heal that gut lining that's been causing that inflammation. So how do you know if you really should be the one to try a gluten-free diet? Of course, if you've been diagnosed with celiac or suspect you have celiac, where you get stomach pains from eating gluten, that's the first sign, of course, to go gluten-free. But if you have any autoimmune disease, rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's, Graves, type 2 diabetes, any of these are going to be good signs that you might be gluten intolerant, and going gluten-free can help ease those symptoms. If you have skin conditions, skin rashes that won't go away, the doctor can't quite figure out what it is, that can be eased by going gluten-free. If you've ever been told you're allergic to wheat, it might be time to go gluten-free. If you have brain fog, achy joints, get frequent headaches or migraines, have a lot of digestive issues, bloating, extra gas, problems in the bathroom, any of those might be a sign that you have a gluten intolerance. And when you give up gluten, you'll start to see those signs and symptoms slowly go away. That's what I teach my clients, to do an elimination diet so that they can learn how to Fill their plate with good, nutritious foods that are going to heal their gut and eliminate that gluten and other inflammatory foods that are robbing them of their health by causing extra inflammation that leads to chronic disease. Now, speaking of inflammation, be sure to download my inflammation guide and take the quiz to see how inflamed you are. A lot of times we discount these signs and symptoms as just a sign of getting older, but they could actually be caused by inflammation, and going gluten-free can sometimes ease that. You have the power to take back control of your health and slow down that aging and feel as amazing as you should in this season of life. If you found this video helpful, give me a like and subscribe by hitting that button. And I'll be back next week to teach you more about nutrition and mindset for empty nesters.